Page 61. Unit 21. Swarajists and Constructive Work. Structure. 21.0 to 1.0. Objectives. 21.1 to 1.1. Introduction. 21.2 to 1.2. Background. 21.3 to 1.3. Swaraj Party Formation. 21.3.1 to 1.3.1. Gandhi and Swarajists. 21.3.2 to 1.3.2. Objectives and aims. 21.3.3 to 1.3.3. Program. 21.3.4 to 1.3.4. Methods. 21.4 to 1.4. Swarajists at the polls. 21.5 to 1.5. Work in the legislatures. 21.6 to 1.6. Constructive work. 21.6.1 to 1.6.1. Khadi. 21.6.2 to 1.6.2. Untouchability. 21.6.3 to 1.6.3. Other social problems. 21.7 to 1.7. Demoralization and decline. DEMORALISATION. Demoralization and decline. 21.7.1 to 1.7.1. Drift. 21.7.2. Merger to 1.7.2. Merger. 21.7.3 to 1.7.3. Disintegration. 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 21.8 to 1.8. Causes for decline. 21.8.1 to 1.8.1. Rising communal tempo. 21.8.2 to 18.2. Lure of office. 21.8.3 to 1.8.3. Class character. 21.9. Let us sum up. 21.10. 21.21.10. Keywords. 21.11 to 1.11. Answers to check your progress exercises. 21.0. Objectives. This unit intends to give you an account of the emergence of Swarajists as a new trend in the nationalist politics. Its manifestation, manifestation, manifestation was the foundation of the Swaraj Party under the leadership of Motilal Nehru and Chittaranjan Das. After reading this unit, you will, number 1, get familiar with how the Swaraj Party originated and what ideology it professed. Number 2, know its program and reasons for its disintegration. Number 3, assess its contribution to Indian politics. Number 4, Get a summary of the sequence of events following the withdrawal of the non-cooperation movement. 21.1 21.1 Introduction. The period 1922 to 29, 1922 to 29 is important for many reasons. It began with the ending of the non-cooperation movement and ended with the starting of yet another movement. It also enriched India's struggle for liberation by introducing new trends and forms of political action. It placed before the nation the twin program of council entry and constructive works. It also brought to the forefront new leaders with a different outlook. Besides, the period witnessed new problems, new tensions, new dilemmas, and new constraints on India's fight for independence. In this unit, you are going to be introduced to all those aspects of the period 1922 to 29, 1922 to 29. Page 62. 21.2 1.2 Background. Under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi, the Congress emerged as a great nationalist forum of all shades and opinions, voicing anti-imperialist sentiments. During Gandhi's first civil disobedience movement 1920 to 22, 1920 to 22 in brackets, its roots spread out among all classes of people. The formal acceptance of Swaraj as the goal of the Congress really converted non-cooperation into a mass movement. Gandhi's catchy slogan, Swaraj in 1 year, stirred the masses of men into action. The suspension of non-cooperation in February 1922, 1922 created widespread disappointment and precipitated precipitated an open division in the leadership of the Congress. The government took advantage of the situation to take resort to a policy of repression. Repression. It invoked Bengal Regulation 3 of 1816-1816 and promulgated promulgated an ordinance providing for summary arrest and trial before special commissioners. The British Prime Minister Lloyd George delivered his steel-frame speech praising the work and efficiency of the ICS cadre. This was in tune with a shift in policy which virtually repudiated repudiated the principles of self-government and strengthened the autocratic British regime. A sense of disillusionment, disillusionment led many at this stage to question the efficacy of Gandhian methods of struggle. Was it all possible to train millions of people in the philosophy of non-violence? Even if it was possible, how long would it take? Gandhi was now behind the bars and there was no definite political program before the country. The artificial Hindu-Muslim unity was fast disappearing. Acute Hindu-Muslim tensions and outbreak of communal violence dissipated national energies. The constructive work of the Congress an essentially socio-economic program of amelioration, amelioration, amelioration could not attract the upper middle class intellectuals. They had never appreciated Gandhi's emotional and metaphysical approach to politics. They looked at politics from the plane of reality and were keen to rescue the Congress and its politics from the demoralization that had set in after the withdrawal of non-cooperation. 21.3 21.3 Swaraj Party Formation. At this stage, a new lead was given by C.R. Das and Motilal Nehru. When the Civil Disobedience Enquiry Committee reported that the country was not yet ready to embark upon a program of mass civil disobedience, and the constructive program found only a limited response, these leaders proposed that instead of boycotting the legislatures, non-cooperation should be carried into them. They put forward the idea of council entry to wreak the reforms from within. This proposal attracted several congressmen, but it was stoutly opposed by orthodox Gandhians led by Raja Gopalachari, Rajendra Prasad, and Vallabhbhai Patel. There was a split in the Congress. The No Changers or Orthodox Gandhians decried the program of council entry and desired the Congress to follow Gandhi's constructive program. The pro-changers of Swarajists wanted the constructive program to be coupled with the political program of council entry. The matter came to a head in December 1922 at the Gaya session of the Congress, where Raja Gopalachari led opposition to council entry, forcing C.R. Das to tender resignation from the presidentship of the Congress. On being outvoted, C.R. Das was announced the formation of the Swaraj Party on 31st December 3-1 December 1922, with himself as president and Motilal as secretary. The victory of the No Changers at the Gaya Congress was short-lived. The Hindu-Muslim riots of 1923 darkened the political atmosphere. It was also clear that the civil disobedience could not be resumed as a national program. The Special Congress session held at Delhi in September 1923 under the presidentship of Maulana Azad allowed congressmen to contest the forthcoming elections. Annual session at Kokanada blessed the council entry by maintaining that non-cooperation could be practiced inside the councils also. The Congress called upon all its members to double their efforts to carry out the constructive program of Gandhi. 21.3.1 Gandhi and Swarajists. The elections were fought and the Swarajists swept the polls in some provinces. Their position and strength within the Congress increased. Gandhi was released from the jail in February 1924. His release revived the old conflict and a split in the Congress seemed, page 63, imminent, IMMINENT, imminent. In June, Gandhi made a declaration in favor of the original boycott program. He went to the length of saying that those who did not accept his policy should function as a separate organization. His resolutions at the AICC meeting at Ahmedabad in June 1924 were virtually aimed at eliminating the Swarajists from the Congress. One of the resolutions called upon every office holder of the Congress to spin 2,000 yards of yarn every month and authorized the PCCs to take proper action against the defaulters. Those who did not accept the boycott of the councils were to resign from the AICC. The electorates were warned against those who flouted the Congress policy. The Swarajists were disturbed as the success with the electorates was to a great extent due to the prestige and resources of the Congress. They offered stiff resistance to these resolutions. In the face of opposition from Das Nehru, combined Gandhi diluted his resolution, which was eventually carried with the omission by way of compromise of the penalty of loss of office originally attached to it. It was a serious blow to Gandhi's power and prestige. He publicly confessed that he was defeated and humbled. Gandhi now lent his support to Swarajists and made them the accredited agents of the Congress to deal with the government. The Belgaum Congress, presided over by Gandhi, laid the foundation of mutual trust between non-changers and the Swarajists. He brought about an agreement incorporating the suspension of non-cooperation except in so far as it related to the refusal to use or wear cloth made out of India. It laid down the different kinds of Congress work might be done by different sections. The constructive program, with its emphasis on the spinning wheel, Hindu-Muslim unity, prohibition, and the removal of untouchability, was prescribed to congressmen as the chief means for the attainment of Swaraj. 21.3.2 21.3.2 Objectives and Aims. The objectives and aims of the Swaraj Party were indicated in its program first published in February 1923, 1923. The immediate objective was speedy attainment of full dominion status, including the right to frame a constitution adopting such machinery and system as are most suited to the conditions of the country and genius of the peoples. Its manifesto of 14 October 1923, 1923, as well as the nature of its demands in the councils, revealed that it wanted full provincial autonomy, implying control over bureaucracy as a necessary preliminary to the right to frame constitution. The other objective of the party was to secure the recognition of the principle that the bureaucracy derived its power from the people. The manifesto made it clear that the demand which its members would make on entering legislatures was to press the government to concede the right of the people of India to control the existing machinery and system of government, and to resort to a policy of uniform, continuous, and consistent obstruction if the government refused to entertain such a demand. The constitution of the Swaraj Party, framed in 1923, 1923, underwent many changes until its relationship with the Congress was finally determined at the Belgaum Congress in December 1924, 1924. The Constitution of 1924, 1924, laid down the party's objectives as the attainment of Swaraj by the people of India by all legitimate and peaceful means. The exact nature of Swaraj was left undefined in the Constitution. 21.3.3 21.3.3 Program. The Swaraj Party was the handiwork of those eminent Congress leaders who had never seen eye to eye with Gandhi in his approach to non-cooperation. They had no sympathy with the mass action program of Gandhi, but they acquiesced acquiesced in it by the force of circumstances in 1920, 1920. Being an integral part of the Congress and operating as one of its departments, the program of the Swarajists could not be much different from that of the Congress. Fortified by the blessings of the Congress, the Swaraj Party proclaimed to carry non-violent non-cooperation inside the councils with a view to wrecking the Constitution of 1919, 1919. The party resolved to adopt the following program. Inside the councils, the party decided that whenever possible it would: number one, refuse supplies and throw out budget to force recognition of their rights. Number two, throw out all proposals for legislative enactments by which the bureaucracy proposed to consolidate its powers. Number three, move resolutions and introduce and support measures and bills necessary for the healthy growth of national life. Page 64. Fourth point. Help the constructive program of the Congress. Number 5. Follow a definite economic policy to prevent the drain of public wealth from India by checking all activities leading to exploitation and to advance national, economic, industrial and commercial interest of the country. And number 6, project the rights of labor, agricultural and industrial, and adjust the relations between landlords and tenants, capitalists and workmen. Outside the council, it was decided that the party would work for: number 1, intercommunal unity with a view to bringing about a complete understanding among Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Brahmins and non-Brahmins. Number 2, removal of untouchability and raising the status of the depressed classes. Number 3, village organization. Number 4, organization of labor in the country, industrial as well as agricultural, including ryots, RYOTS, and peasants in order to protect and promote their interests and secure a proper place for them in the struggle for Swaraj. Number 5, acquisition of economic control of the country, including development of commerce and industry. Number 6, establishment of control of nationalists over local and municipal affairs. Number 7, carrying out the constructive program of the Congress in a manner as it thought necessary in relation to Swadeshi, Khaddar, temperance, national education and arbitration boards. Number 8, boycott of selected British goods manufactured outside India on the advice of a committee with a view to use it as a political weapon in the pursuit of Swaraj. Number 9, formation of a federation of Asiatic countries to secure Asian solidarity and mutual help in trade and commerce. And number 10, organization of agencies for propaganda outside India of national work and enlisting sympathy and support of foreign countries in the struggle for Swaraj. A cursory look at the program of the Swarajists would reveal its all-embracing, omnibus character. It was devised to please all sections of people with an eye on the election. The Swarajists believed in class collaboration rather than in class cleavage. They did not want to disturb the social order as it had obtained for centuries in India. They stood for justice to the peasantry, but at the same time believed that poor indeed will be the quality of that justice if it involves any injustice to the landlord. The Swarajists had to keep richer sections of society in good humor owing to their dependence on them for election and party funds. In espousing the constructive program, they recognized the utility of legislative bodies as instruments for its implementation. It must, however, be admitted that the program outside the legislative bodies was quite unwieldy. The creation of a federation of Asiatic countries and the organization of agencies for foreign propaganda were too ambitious to be realized. 21.3.4 21.3.4 Methods. What gave a peculiar distinction to the politics of the Swarajists was their avowed intention of wreaking the reforms from within. Michael O'Dyer, formerly Lieutenant Governor of Punjab, had written that to deal with sabotage was much more difficult than an open rebellion. The Swarajists' methods of obstruction to all government-sponsored laws were calculated to destroy the prestige of the councils, which had throttled the national self-assertion and respect. Motilal observed in March 1926, 1926, while staging a walk out of his party, "We feel that we have no further use for these sham institutions, and the least we can do to vindicate the honor and self-respect of the nation is to get out of them. We will try to devise those sanctions which alone can compel any government to grant the demand of a nation." The Swarajists carried non-cooperation into the very aisles and chancel of the bureaucratic church. They created deadlock in the legislatures, blew up the diarchy in the provinces by the method of obstruction. By obstruction, they meant resistance to the obstruction placed in the way of Swaraj by the alien government. In a speech in the Bengal Legislative Council in 1925-1925, C.R. Das observed, "We want to destroy and get rid of a system which does no good and can do no good. We want to destroy it because we want to construct a system which can be worked with success and will enable us to do good to the masses." This is in quotes. The methods of the Swarajists on the destructive side emphasized rejection of the volatile parts of the budgets and rejection of proposals emanating from the bureaucracy. On the page 65, constructive side, they sought to move resolutions calculated to promote a healthy national life and displacement of bureaucracy. The General Council of the Swaraj Party laid down specific rules for the conduct of its members in the legislative bodies. They were not to serve as members on committees by official nomination. C.R. Das summed up the methods of work inside the councils thus: "I want you to enter the councils and to secure a majority and to put forward national demand. If it is not accepted, I want to oppose the government in every measure, good, bad, and indifferent, and make the work of the council impossible." It's in quoted. He further said, again in quote, "If the government conducted its work through certification, the Swarajist members would resign, making it a political issue. After re-election, they would recontinue their efforts to oppose all government measures, and if, in spite of it all, the government did not yield, then the voters would be advised to stop the payment of taxes and resort to civil disobedience." The quote closed. Thus, the civil disobedience was to be the last resort against bureaucratic truculence, truculence, truculence. Check your progress 1. Each question given below has many answers. Mark the right answer. Number 1. Who founded the Swaraj Party? There are four options. A. Mahatma Gandhi, B. Vijay Patel, C. S.B. Tambe, D. C.R. Das. Question number 2. What was the chief program of the party? Option 1. A. Council entry. Option B. Constitutional opposition. Option C. Constructive program. Option D. None of the above. Question number 3. When was the program of the party first published? Option A. December 1922, 1922. Option B. February 1923, 1923. Option C. October 1923, 1923. And option D. February 1922, 1922. Question number 4. Make a list of the program adopted by the Swaraj Party inside the councils. 5 of them, you have to make 5 lists. Outside the council, again another 5 lists. 21.4 to 1.4 Swarajists at the polls. There were altogether 3 elections held under the provisions of the Act of 1919, 1919 in 1920, 1920, 1923, 1923 and 1926, 1926. Owing to the non-cooperation movement, the Congress had boycotted the elections in 1920, 1920, leaving the field for the Liberals and others. By the time elections were held in 1923, 1923, the non-cooperation movement had spent its force and the split in the Congress over council entry had become pronounced. The Das-Nehru group, under the banner of the Swaraj Party, fought elections on the charter of council entry. At the elections, the Liberals alone constituted a formidable opposition to the Swarajists. The independents were also in the fray and were men of local importance, but without any, page 67, definite political status. The Liberals were at a disadvantage as they were in the councils in the previous term. They were overruled by the government even on trivial routine matters. The stigma of association with an alien government was attached to them. On the contrary, the Swarajists had a halo of martyrdom due to their imprisonment during the non-cooperation movement. The Liberals had no tangible achievement to advertise to the electorates, while the Swarajists appeared as Gandhi's men, committed to the attainment of Swaraj. They were now going to enter the councils as the battle for Swaraj outside had ended without success. Their policy of open antagonism to the prevailing system of government made a wide appeal to the electorates. The Swarajists' success in the elections of 1923-1923 was impressive but by no means brilliant except in the central provinces. The Swarajists emerged as the single largest party in the Central Assembly, Bombay and Bengal councils, while their number in the UP council was not insignificant. The Swarajists were successful against the Liberals, but they could do little against the independents who counted for success on the basis of their local influence. The victory of the Swarajists at the polls strengthened their position in the Congress as against the no-changers. They, in effect, came to be recognized as the parliamentary wing of the Congress. The bulk of the candidates elected were lawyers and businessmen. The results of the elections of 1926-1926 came as a rude shock to the Swarajists. Their strength in the legislative bodies went down, except in the Madras, where the success was signal. They suffered heavy losses everywhere. In the UP, CP, and Punjab, the Swarajists were routed. In the CP Legislative Council, they secured only one seat. In the UP, the number went down from 31 to 19, 3-1 to 1-9. In the Central Legislative Assembly, the number went down from 42, 4-2 to 35, 3-5. Page 69. In fact, on the eve of the 1926 elections, 1926 elections, the Swarajists had lost much of their ground. The untimely demise of C.R. Das in 1925, 1925, created a great void. The Swaraj Party was a house divided against itself. Mutual bickerings, 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 and distrust eroded its credibility. Denial of tickets to some Swarajists led them to declare their candidature as independents. The impression went round that they were self-seekers and time-servers. The policy of obstruction could not hold together all the Swarajists, and a section of them turned responsivist Swarajists, further eroding the strength of the Swaraj Party. The protracted Hindu-Muslim tension presents of reactionary elements of both the communities within the party, which ostensibly ostensibly professed secularism, really created a difficult situation. The Hindus felt that their interests were not safe in the hands of the Congress. The activities of the Hindu Mahasabha also weakened the Swarajist position. The Muslim alienation from the Congress became so marked that its erstwhile Muslim members fought elections as Muslims, not as Swarajists. 21.5 Work in the legislatures. In the Legislative Assembly, Motilal Nehru led a strong contingent of the Swarajists. Since they were not in majority, it was desirable to seek support from other groups to implement effectively the policy of obstruction. Early in February 1924, 1924, a coalition of 70 members was formed who subscribed to the policy of obstruction in case the government failed to respond to the resolution demanding immediate constitutional progress. This coalition came to be known as a nationalist party, but all its constituents and members did not share the radicalism of the Swarajists. The coalition dominated the proceedings of the legislature in 1924, 1924. It rejected the first 4 demands of the budget and did not allow the finance bill to be introduced in the legislature. Rangacharya moved a resolution requesting the Governor-General in Council to revise the Act of 1919 to secure for India provincial autonomy and dominion status. Motilal moved an amendment in favor of a round-table conference to recommend a scheme of full responsible government. It was carried in the Assembly by the majority vote. It was as follows. This Assembly recommends to the Governor-General in Council to take steps to have the Government of India Act revised with a view to establishing full responsible government for India and for the said purpose. A. To summon at an early date representatives to a round-table conference to recommend, with due regard for the protection of the rights and interests of the important minorities, a constitution for India, and number B, after dissolving the central legislature, to place the said scheme before a newly elected Indian legislature and submit the same to the British Parliament to embodied in a statute. The government of India was forced to appoint a committee under Sir Alexander Mudman, the Home Member, to inquire into the defects in the working of the Act of 1919 and to suggest remedies. The committee, including eminent Indians like T.B. Sapru, M.A. Jinnah, R.P. Paranjapaya, Sir Sivaswamy Iyer, Motilal Nehru, in accordance with the creed of Swarajists, turned down the request of the government to serve on the committee. The Swarajists also refused invitations to the levees and parties of the Viceroy as a protest against the non-settlement of the Indian problem. When the recommendations of the League Commission, constituted under the chairmanship of Viscount Lee to inquire into the organization and conditions of public services, came for approval of the Assembly, Motilal moved an amendment which was carried by the majority vote. On that occasion, Motilal condemned the existing constitution of the services and observed that the government was attempting the impossible task of working a reformed constitution on the basis of the reformed administration. The year 1924 to 25, 1924 to 25, registered many victories for the Swarajists in the Legislative Assembly. They succeeded in throwing out the budget, forcing the government to rely on its power of certification. C.D. Iyengar's resolution urging the suppression of the Bengal Ordinance by an act of the legislature was carried through by 58-58 against 45-45 votes. Vijay Patel introduced a bill for the repeal of the State Prisoners Act of 1850-1850, the Frontier Outrages Act of 1867-1867, and the Prevention of Seditious Meetings Act of 1921-1921. It was carried except for the omission of the Frontier Outrages Act. The government was also defeated on Raja's resolution seeking the establishment of a military college in India. The official resolution, page 7070, urging the acceptance of majority report of the Reforms Inquiry Committee, was objected to by Motilal, who moved an amendment which was carried by 72 votes to 45-45. This amendment reiterated the old stand of the Swarajists on the constitutional progress, that is, the establishment of a full responsible government through a scheme evolved by a round table conference of representative Indians. The Swarajists, in their zeal to wreak the reforms from within, often succeeded in blocking the passage of the government's bills and other measures. They resorted to adjournment motions and asking inconvenient questions to expose the misdeeds of the alien government. But the wrecking methods could in no case paralyze the government. The independents declined to join the Swarajists merely for pursuing a policy of obstruction for its own sake. The Nationalist Party showed signs of crumbling as responsive cooperators, and independents did not always see eye to eye with the Swarajists. In the later parliamentary career, the Swarajists protested against the government's policies by adopting the method of walking in and walking out regularly. This technique earned for the Swarajists such nicknamed as peripatetic, Peripatetic, peripatetic patriots, and patriotism in locomotion. The success of the Swaraj Party in Bengal and the central provinces was impressive. In Bengal, it was the largest party, and with the general support of 1919 independence, it succeeded in producing deadlock. Lord Lytton, the governor of Bengal, invited C.R. Das to accept responsibility for the transferred departments. He declined the invitation and organized an effective coalition to oppose the government. Twice in 1924, 1924 and 1925, 1925, the salaries of the ministers were rejected and repeated attempts to restore salaries proved unavailing. The governor was compelled to divide the transferred departments between himself and the members of the Executive Council. J.M. Sengupta's resolution seeking release of political prisoners was carried by 72 votes against 41, 4-1. It was followed by the passage of the resolution moved by Byomkesh Chakravarti for the repeal of certain laws such as Bengal Regulation (IIT) of 1818 1818, the Indian Criminal Law Amendment Act, and the Sedious Meetings Act. The division showed 63 votes for 43 against 4-3. The death of C.R. Das in 1925, 1925, deprived the Swarajists of their obelisk leader and their position was weakened. Yet, the government was unable to form a ministry. In 1926, 1926, the Swarajists withdrew from the council, proclaiming the death of Dayaki. In the central provinces, the Swarajists secured absolute majority, enabling them to paralyze the government. They refused to accept the office of ministers. The government appointed non-Swarajists as ministers. The Swarajists moved a resolution requesting the ministers to resign. It was carried in the council by 44 votes to 2-4. The government in the CP could be run by the special powers of the governor. The Indian Statutory Commission admitted, although somewhat grudgingly, the success of the Swarajists thus. The only really well-organized and disciplined party with a definite program, though it is true, a negative one in brackets, is that of the Swarajists. Only in Bengal and the central provinces did they even temporarily achieve their initial object of making Dayaki unworkable, and in the provinces they have attended everywhere, in varying degrees, to be transformed into an opposition of a more constitutional kind, and have not infrequently played a useful part as keen and vigilant critics. This is in quotes. The Swarajist activities produced a stir in the country and achieved whatever could be achieved by the tactics under the constitution. The enthusiasm of the public ran high when Dayaki was overthrown in Bengal and the central provinces. Their activities enlivened an otherwise dull political atmosphere. Their tactics of obstruction embarrassed the government, while the parliamentary duels of the period constitute a brilliant page in the annals, ANNALS, annals of parliamentary politics. 21.6 to 1.6 Constructive Work. The Council entry for wrecking reforms from within was the main, but by no means the sole objective of the Swarajists. They also had a definite conception of socio-economic reforms or ameliorative ameliorative activities, which Gandhi characterized as the constructive program. To Gandhi, the chariot of freedom struggle had two wheels: constructive program and political campaigns. The constructive program, as adumbrated, adumbrated by him, consisted of 18 items, of which the most important were Hindu-Muslim unity, removal of untouchability, prohibition, Swadeshi, and boycott.
Unit 21, Swarajists and Constructive Work. Subsection 21.6 Constructive Work. The council entry for wrecking reforms from within was the main, but by no means the sole objective of the Swarajists. They also had a definite conception of socio-economic reforms or ameliorative activities. Ameliorative, Ameliorative, ameliorative activities, which Gandhi characterized as a constructive program. To Gandhi, the chariot of freedom struggle had two wheels: constructive program and political campaigns. The constructive program, as adumbrated by him, adumbrated, ADUMBRATED, as adumbrated by him, consisted of 18 items, of which the most important were Hindu Muslim unity, removal of untouchability, prohibition, Swadeshi, and boycott. The Swarajists could ill afford to ignore the program, as they knew that someday they might have to leave the councils and resort to civil disobedience along with those who did not go to the councils. They owed their political power to their continued association with Gandhi and the Congress. The constructive program provided a common platform to both the factions of the Congress, No Changes, and the Swarajists. It must, however, be admitted that the Swarajists, being chiefly engaged in council entry and parliamentary politics, could do little to implement the program as zealously ZEALOUSLY as zealously and steadfastly as No Changes could. The top leadership of the Swarajists regarded Hindu-Muslim unity and political education of the masses as sine qua non for the attainment of Swaraj. Sine qua non, SINEQUANON, sine qua non, meaning an essential condition. The Congress resolved in 1926 on the establishment of a permanent publicity bureau for educating the masses on communal amity and sound national life. Maulana Azad, Motilal Nehru, and Sarojini Naidu were authorized to take necessary steps in this direction. At the Guwahati session of the Congress, Motilal exerted all his influence on the Congress to adopt the program of educating the people in their political rights and training them to acquire the necessary strength to win those rights by carrying out the constructive programmer. The rise of Swarajis in Indian politics coincided with the worst period of Hindu-Muslim tension. The communal riots constituted a grave challenge to all those who cherished in their hearts the values of freedom, national unity, and secularism. But the Swarajis, like any other group, could do nothing constructive to halt the downward trend except pious speeches, PIOUS, pious speeches on the desirability of Hindu-Muslim unity. The concept of Swadeshi occupied a very important place in Gandhian constructive program. Gandhi's definition of Swadeshi was comprehensive, as it included not only charka, that is the spinning wheel, and khadi, that is the coarse cloth, but also all other forms of indigenous industries. Indigenous, INDIGENOUS, indigenous. To him, khadi meant a wholesale Swadeshi mentality, a determination to find all the necessaries of life in India, and that too through the labor and intellect of the villagers. The Swarajists also espoused, ESPOUSED. The Swarajists also espoused the program of Swadeshi and of charka and khadi. But their passion for khadi and charka was not as strong and as deep as that of Gandhi or his orthodox followers. Orthodox, ORTHODOX, orthodox. Gandhi bemoaned, BEMOANED. Gandhi bemoaned that Khaddar among the Swarajists was on the wane. W-A-N-E, wane. Gandhi bemoaned that Khadr among the Swarajists was on the wane and it remained a ceremonial dress as they did not hesitate to use Videshi, that is, the foreign clothes, in their household circle. Subsection 21.6.1 Khadi. The Swarajists did not share Gandhi's views on Khadr and hand spinning. C. R. Das regarded charkha and khadi as instrumental in improving the economic life of Indian people. He did not subscribe to the commercial utility of khadi, commercial, commercial, commercial utility of khadi, and did not regard it as a commodity of worldwide marketable importance. The Swarajists did not believe that khadi, charkha, and indigenous industries alone would make India independent. Das said, "It is stated that Khadr alone will bring us Swaraj. I ask my countrymen, in what way is it possible for Khadr to lead us to Swaraj?" The Swarajists made no fetish of Khadr, but they missed no opportunity in exhorting, exhorting, exhorting the people to wear khadi. The instructions issued by the Swaraj Party to all its members required them to attend the meetings of the Central Assembly and provincial councils, provincial, provincial, provincial councils dressed in pure Qadr. The Swarajists did not ordinarily oppose the enthusiasm, Enthusiasm. The Swarajists did not ordinarily oppose the enthusiasm of the orthodox Gandhian and no changes in the matter of Khadr and hand spinning. But they opposed tooth and nail proposals put forward by Gandhians in the Congress to make khadi or charkha spinning the basis for its membership. Gandhi's resolution making spinning obligatory for members of all elected organizations of the Congress drew strong disapproval from the Swarajists. Obligatory, Obligatory. In the face of strong resistance from the Swarajists, Gandhi made provision in the hand spinning resolution for the removal of the penalty clause. Clause. Asked to define the attitude of Swarajists towards the spinning resolution, Das replied, "The Swarajists have no objection to spin, and they have over and over again declared their faith in the constructive program, but they strongly resented anything being forced upon them, and they thought it was an attempt to exclude them unconstitutionally from the Congress executive." Unconstitutionally. Unconstitutionally, unconstitutionally from the Congress executive. In conclusion, it may be stated that the Swarajists were always ready to contribute to the progress of Khadr, but they were not its blind worshippers ready to indulge in excesses. Excesses. Subsection 21.6.2 Untouchability. Untouchability was a blot on Indian society. The non-cooperation resolution advised the country to revive hand spinning and hand weaving on a large scale, as it would benefit millions of weavers. 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 Pariahs of Indian society. Pariah. 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 Non-cooperation is a plea, said Gandhi, for a change of heart not merely in the English but in ourselves. At the Nagpur session of the Congress, he called upon the people to make special efforts to rid Hinduism of the reproach of untouchability. The elevation of the depressed classes received unfailing attention of the Congress. The Swarajists' attitude could not be different from what Gandhi thought on the question. They were in full agreement with the resolution on untouchability passed at the Belgaum Congress of 1924. They strongly felt that this curse must be speedily removed from the Indian society. Untouchability showed itself in a horrible form in some parts of India. Many initiatives were taken during this period to fight this curse of Indian social life. In Vycombe, Vykom, a place in South India, for example, reformers resorted to satyagraha to secure for untouchables the right to use a public road leading to a Hindu temple. This initiative received full support from Gandhi and the Swarajists. The Swarajists passed a resolution sympathizing with the Satyagraha movement at Vycombe. The Belgaum Congress called upon the Travancore government, Travancore, Travancore, the Belgaum Congress called upon the Travancore government to recognize the justice of the Satyagrahis' claim and grant speedy relief. The government was made to realize that it was improper to lead state support to Hindu conservatism. Conservatism, conservatism. Yielding to the pressure of satyagrahis, the government of Travancore removed barricades and pickets, although the public opinion remained divided over the question of allowing the untouchables to use the thoroughfare leading to the temple. In the Tarakeshwar incident, the Swarajists took very keen interest against the autocracy of a Mahant. Autocracy, Autocracy. Swami Vishwanand and Swami Sajidanand, two religious reformers, organized a band of volunteers, declared the temple a public property, and resorted to direct action against the tyranny of the Mahant. Tyranny, Tyrannny, tyranny. A conflict took place between the servants of the Mahant and the volunteers. C.R. Das decried D-E-C-R-I-E-D decried. C.R. Das decried the role of the government and called for the arrest of the Mahant. The pressure was brought upon the Mahant to hand over the temple to a committee appointed by Das. The Tarakeshwar affair produced considerable excitement. Many arrests were made and the police was compelled to resort to firing on one occasion. The Swarajists ultimately succeeded in effecting a compromise with Mahant on their own terms. The whole incident demonstrated sincerity of the Swarajists who wished to do away with the discrimination in the matter of religious worship in temples. They stood for opening the doors of temples for worship to the depressed classes. The Swarajists also organized intercaste dinners to break down caste prejudice. Prejudice. The Swarajists also missed no opportunity of vindicting vindicting the rights of the depressed classes in the Central Legislative Assembly and the provincial councils. The anti-untouchability activities they undertook created social consciousness, consciousness, but more persistent efforts were needed to root out the age-old prejudices. Unit 21, Swarajists and Constructive Work. Section 21.6, Constructive Work. Recording Part 2. Subsection 21.6.3, Other Social Problems. The evil of drinking or taking intoxicants, intoxicants, Intoxicants. The evil of drinking or taking intoxicants did not escape the attention of the Congress reformists. 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 The Congress emphasized the need of ending the evil and proclaimed its faith in the policy of prohibition. Intemperance. INTEMPERANCE. Intemperance, or the evil of consuming intoxicants, had existed in pre British India. The British made intoxicants a source of their income and were unwilling to enforce prohibition for fear of losing a substantial source of supply of money to the government. The nationalists realized the gravity of the situation where an alien government cared more for its income than for the general good of the society. As patriots, it was their moral duty and social obligation to work for the regeneration of society. The Swarajists, therefore, included in their program the enforcement of temperance. The nationalists realized very clearly that the policy of the government of India, under which drinking and drug taking habits of people were used as a source of revenue, was detrimental. DETRIMENTAL was detrimental to national health and moral welfare of the people. They stood therefore for its abolition. 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 From 1922 to 1929, the Congress, the Swarajists, being its integral part, laid great emphasis on the constructive program. Emphasis. 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 Mahatma Gandhi made it a mission of his life and held fast the view that the road to real freedom lay through the constructive program. The Swarajists lent support to the constructive program but did not share Gandhi's passion and idealism in this regard. It must, however, be admitted that the constructive work of the Congress failed to produce the expected results. But the Congressites, CONGRESSITES, but the Congressites did succeed to a limited extent in making a dent in the fort of orthodoxy. Swarajists and constructive work. Check your progress 2 blanks. First blank. Swaraj Party took part in the elections in dash A. 1923-1926, B. 1919-1923, C. 1920-1926, D. 1919-1920. Blank 2. Elections were held under the Act of dash A. 1920, B. 1923, C. 1926, D. 1919. Blank 3. In the Legislative Assembly of 1924, the maximum seats were held by dash A. Landlords, B. Journalists, C. Lawyers, D. Businessmen. Blank 4. The Swarajist leader who became president of the assembly was dash A. Motilal Nehru, B. V. J. Patel, C. C. R. Das, D. J. M. Sengupta. Blank 5. In 1923, Swaraj Party gained absolute majority in dash A. Legislative Assembly, B. UP Council, C. Bengal Council, D. CP Council. The next task is to write 10 lines on the performance of the Swarajists in the legislatures. Section 21.7. Demoralization and Decline. DEMORALISATION. Demoralization. The enthusiasm of 1924 began to wane, and the years 1925 to 27 saw demoralization and eventual decline of the Swarajists. Inside the legislatures, the Swarajists failed to pursue the policy of constant, continuous, uniform obstruction. The Swarajist tactics had served the purpose of exposing the hollowness of the Constitution of 1919, but these proved unavailing. UNAVAILING, unavailing in ending or mending it. A substantial section of the Swarajists realized that the destructive opposition to all government measures put an end to all socially useful measures. The spirit of responsive cooperation was getting stronger month after month. Even C.R. Das became inclined towards cooperation. Presiding over the Bengal Provincial Conference at Faridpur on 2nd May 1925, he appealed to the British to effect a reasonable settlement. He said that cooperation with the government was possible if some real responsibility was transformed to the people. He called for a general amnesty to all political prisoners. Amnesty. 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 And to show a practical demonstration of change of heart. He assured the government that the Swarajists would do everything to discourage revolutionary propaganda. 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 Subsection 21.7.1 Drift. The Faridpur Declaration accelerated the drift towards constitutional opposition and cooperation with the government. Lord Birkenhead's speech. Birkenhead. BIRKENHEAD. Lord Birkenhead's speech of 7 July 1925, paying tribute to the party as the most highly organized political party in India and disclaiming that we no longer talk of holding the gorgeous East in fee, seemed to have impressed the Swarajists, and they were in a mood to be dissuaded. DISSUADED. To be dissuaded from pure obstructionist politics. Obstructionist. OBSTRUCTIONISTS. Obstructionist politics. In fact, many of the Swarajists had no faith in the policy of non-cooperation. Having entered the councils, they were not averse to enjoy its privileges. Averse. 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 Privileges. 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 The Swarajist leaders accepted offices and sat on various committees. Motilal, who had earlier declined a seat on the Muddimain committee, now accepted one of the Skeen committee. Vithalbhai Patel became president of the assembly and A. Ramaswamy Iyengar sat on the public accounts committee. Sir Basil Blackett, BASIL Sir Basil Blackett eulogized eulogized in the assembly the cooperation of Motilal Nehru. He asked, what else is Panditji doing in passing the Steel Protection Bill, in passing last year's budget, in separating the railway finance? What else is Patel doing in presiding over this house? He also praised Iyengar for the valuable services rendered by him on the Public Accounts Committee. The government succeeded in cajoling. CAJOLING. The government succeeded in cajoling the Swarajists into some kind of cooperation. In the central provinces, the two Swarajist stalwarts, STALWARTS, TS stalwarts S.B. Tambe and Raghavendra Rao were converted by the government to its side. This not only broke the party in the province into two wings, responsivists RESPONSIVISTS and non-cooperators, but split the party as a whole. The Swarajists of Bombay advocated the path of responsive cooperation. Another Swarajist stalwart defended S.B. Tambe's acceptance of membership of the Governor's Executive Council. In what way did Tambe's action differ from that of Vijay Patel? He asked. The responsive Swarajists voiced publicly the demand to reconsider the party's program. Motilal's rigid discipline and threat, the diseased limb of the Swaraj party must be amputated, offended the responsivists to the extent of open rebellion against the central leadership. The years 1926 to 27 further demoralized the council front. The serious Hindu-Muslim cleavage disintegrated the Swaraj party. Madan Mohan Malaviya and Lajpat Rai organized a new party of Congress Independence and rallied the Hindus under their banner. They were of the opinion that opposition to the government injured the interests of the Hindus. The Swarajists of Bombay made an open declaration in favor of the cult of responsivism, responsivism. The Swaraj party was now riven with dissensions and defections. Riven, RIVEN, dissensions, DISSENSIONS, dissensions. Many Swarajists attended a meeting of leaders held at Calcutta on 31st December 1925 to forge a common line of action. It became clear that there were no fundamental differences now among the liberals, independents, and responsivists. In April 1926, many Swarajists attended the Bombay Conference presided over by T.B. Sapru. The crisis in the Swaraj party deepened and Motilal tried to effect reconciliation between the two wings. Reconciliation, RECONCILIATION, reconciliation. He convened a meeting of the party at Sabarmati to explore the possibilities of a compromise. The meeting approved more or less the principles of responsivism and laid down certain conditions for office acceptance. The non-cooperators attacked the compromise. The responsivists severed their connections with the Congress, which laid down the policy of non-cooperation inside the councils. The Sabarmati Compromise failed to keep the Swaraj party united. Diarchy, DYARCHY, diarchy, which was destroyed in Bengal and CP, was restored in 1927. In Bengal, the demand for ministers' salaries was carried by 94 to 86 votes and in CP by 55 to 16. By 1927, it became clear that by clinging to parliamentary politics, this party had succeeded in wrecking itself rather than the Constitution of 1919. Unit 21, Swarajists and Constructive Work. Recording Part 3. Section 21.7, Demoralization and Decline. Subsection 21.7.2, Merger. MERGER, merger. The announcement of Simon Commission in the closing months of 1927 and Lord Birkenhead's challenge to Indians to produce a constitution acceptable to all sections of society opened new political vistas in the country. The Simon Commission evoked universal boycott while Motilal, taking up the challenge of Birkenhead, prepared a constitution known as Nehru Report. The Swarajists and the No Changers began to draw closer to one another. The Calcutta Congress of 1928 resolved that in case the British government did not accept the Nehru Report by 31 December 1929, the Congress would declare complete independence as its goal. The Council Entry program, in the changed political situation, occupied a backseat and lost its relevance. The Swaraj Party now merged with the Congress as the country began to prepare for the second round of direct mass action to achieve complete independence. Subsection 21.7.3 Disintegration. The demoralization and the decline of the Swaraj Party after its success in 1924 was due to the absence of a broad ideological basis. The unity of the Nationalist Party proved to be short-lived. The grant of immediate constitutional advance as a precondition for cooperation was too limited a goal to hold together men of diverse thinking and independent views. The non-Swarajist constituents of the Nationalist Party realized that the Swaraj Party gave precedence to its interest at their cost. This led to rift and defection, and the Nationalist Party broke down. Jinnah seceded. Seceded. Jinnah seceded from the National Coalition and formed a separate party called the Independent Party. Before the elections of 1926, the Nationalist Party was split into three clear-cut groups: the Swarajist or the Congress Party, the responsive cooperators, which included the Hindu Mahasabha and independent congressmen. They together formed the Nationalist Party under the leadership of Lajpat Rai and Madan Mohan Malaviya, and the Independent Party headed by Jinnah. There was, however, no marked difference in their political and voting behavior. Section 21.8 Causes for Decline. Although the Swarajists, with their program of council entry, seemed very promising in 1923 and looked like changing the course of Indian politics, they petered out very soon. Petered, P-E-T-E-R-E-D, petered, and were undeniably a spent force by 1929. What were the reasons for this decline? Was the decline inherent in the political situation, or was it due to their own mistakes? Or was it because of the limitations of the council entry program itself? In the last section, you read about the disintegration of the Swarajists. Let us briefly see some of the reasons for it. Subsection 21.8.1 Rising Communal Tempo. The increasing communal tempo began to shape the course of events. The communalization of politics narrowed in practice the ideological gap between the Swarajists and the Hindu Mahasabha. Although the Swarajists had captured the Congress, but in the murky communal atmosphere, the Congress image of a national organization free from communal and religious bias now stood battered. B-A-T-T-E-R-E-D, battered. The Muslim alienation definitely weakened the Congress, and the former Muslim Swarajists fought elections as Muslim rather than as Swarajists. The emotional appeal of religion proved irresistible, and secularism became the casualty. In fact, most of the Swarajists were not so much concerned with the secular nationalism as with short-term gains. It led them to compromise with Muslims on adjustment of seats in public services and legislatures. The socialist basis of mass action alone could have reinforced secular nationalism in India. Subsection 21.8.2 Lure of Office. L-U-R-E, lure. The lure of office proved to be another reason for the decline of the Swarajists. They began their career with a bang by entering councils with the declared objective of stiff resistance to the bureaucracy. Bureaucracy, bureaucracy. The spirit of resistance soon gave way to cooperation. V. J. Patel was elected President of the Assembly and Motilal accepted membership of Skene Commission. The policy of unqualified obstruction lost its appeal and the party showed signs of disintegration. Its ranks were riven with internal dissensions, dissensions, and open rebellion and desertions, desertions, decimated it further. Subsection 21.8.3 Class Character. The Swaraj Party represented the upper middle class elements of the Congress who had always been opposed to direct mass action. They had joined the nationalist struggle to prevent it from committing itself to revolutionary mass action. They were drawn, quite unwillingly, into the vortex of non-cooperation movement. On the failure of the movement, they took to parliamentary politics and later seemed to be content with playing the role of constitutional opposition. Nevertheless, given the constraints of colonial setup, it was most progressive and radical among all the existing political parties and groups in the country with the exception of the communists who were still struggling to find feet in the Indian soil. Check your progress 3 tasks. The first task is to write 10 lines on the cause of the decline of the Swarajists. The next task is match the following. On one side, we will be given a set of prominent persons in the Indian history. And on the other side, we will be given the positions held by these prominent persons. We have the task of matching these prominent personalities with their associated positions. Section 21.9. Let us sum up. The Swaraj Party was formed in 1923 by those upper middle class intellectuals of the Congress who had little faith in the direct mass action program of Mahatma Gandhi. On the collapse of non-cooperation, they held aloft the banner of council entry, disregarding the opposition of the no changers, who pinned their faith in boycott and the constructive work. The Swarajists' success in the elections of 1923 made them formidable, and Gandhi had to accord recognition to them against his wishes as the parliamentary wing of the Congress. The Swarajists, in turn, expressed their faith and willingness to carry on the constructive work, that is, propagation of Khadi, removal of untouchability, prohibition, and Hindu-Muslim unity. But their adherence, adherence to it was not as idealistic and as complete as that of no changers. In the Legislative Assembly and in Bengal and CP councils, the Swarajists succeeded for the time being in creating deadlocks and forcing the governments to rely on their special powers. In Bengal and CP, they virtually pronounced the demise of diarchy. They had entered the legislative bodies with the avowed aim of changing them in the interest of Swaraj or ending them altogether. They could not do either, nor was it possible in the conditions under the colonial rule in India. They could not prevent the British colonialists from carrying out their imperialist policies. Colonialists, colonialists, colonialists. Nevertheless, their speeches and tactics helped to a considerable extent in exposing imperialist policy and the hollowness of the British democratic pretensions. Soon the cracks developed in the Swaraj Party due to the emergence of the tendency to reach some compromise with the authorities. C.R. Das' Faridpur speech set the ball rolling towards cooperation and constitutional opposition. The party got split into responsive Swarajists and non-cooperators. The former even accepted government posts. The demoralization and decline began in the party. At the next elections to the legislative bodies in 1926, the party lost several seats and its position was greatly weakened. Many factors contributed to its decline. The program of the party bristled with contradictions. Bristled, B-R-I-S-T-L-E-D, bristled with contradictions. It did not have any sound ideological basis. It talked of the unity of the landlords and peasants and the capitalists and workers whose basic interests collided with one another. The Hindu-Muslim problem alienated both the communities from the Swaraj party. The lure of office further contributed to its decline. Its preoccupation with party politics, council work, and lukewarm support to the constructive work increased the gulf between the masses and the Swarajists. The announcement of the Simon Commission and the subsequent political developments resulted in the merger of the party into the Congress. The Congress returned to its old policy of non-cooperation and civil disobedience, and activities associated with the Swaraj Party were discarded altogether. But it enlivened, 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 but it enlivened an otherwise dull political atmosphere during the period 1922 to 1929 and played an important role on the political scene during this period. Section 21.10 Keywords. Independents. Independents are candidates without any party affiliation. AFFILIATION, affiliation. Legislative Assembly. Legislative Assembly is a legislative body at the center. Legislative Councils. Legislative councils are the legislative bodies in the provinces. Liberals, that section of the Indian political opinion which was critical of certain government policies but did not believe in agitational methods. Agitational, agitational. Purely constitutionalist in approach, the liberals could be placed somewhere between the congressmen and the pro-government elements. Responsivism, a trend within the Swarajists which advocated cooperation with the government. Simon Commission, commission appointed by the British government in 1927 to assess India's fitness for self-rule. It was headed by John Simon and consisted of the members of the British Parliament. Indian opinion was conspicuous by its absence. CONSPICUOUS, conspicuous.